Your finances are one of the most personal aspects of your life, so the idea of trusting a robot or some technology to guide you on your financial journey might make you uncomfortable. Neesha Hathi is the CDO of Charles Schwab, and she knows exactly how you feel. At Schwab, everything comes down to creating the best possible client experience. And for Neesha, that means finding a way to make the digital experience personal, comfortable, and intuitive, yet still joined with the real-life advisors and experts working for the company. It's a tough job, but one that is very much focused on a future that is more technical than ever. Neesha discusses all of that and more on this episode. IT Visionaries is created by the team at mission.org and brought to you by the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Build connected experience, empower every employee, and deliver continuous innovation with the customer at the center of everything you do. Learn more at salesforce.com/platform. This podcast is created by the team at mission.org.
Welcome to another episode of IT Visionaries. I'm Ian Faison, Chief Content Officer here at mission.org. And we are in Charles Schwab's studio, not our own, which is super fun. Neesha, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm just, I am ready to talk all things Schwab, all things digital, and a bunch about your background. So let's get into it. First, how did you get started in technology?
Well, funny, I actually started my career in financial services. And that seems obvious because I'm at Charles Schwab, but I actually thought that the industry was horrible. So I went to business school, and I came out of business school and I went to a technology startup. And that was my first taste of, actually, I spent my summer at a technology startup and then came out and joined another one. So I got the tech bug right out of business school.
And flash forward to today, what goes into being the CDO of Charles Schwab?
Well, so it is a combination of a role that's very technology driven, but with a very business strategy kind of mindset. So essentially the role that I'm in, I'm responsible for ensuring that our clients are served, whether they're an individual investor or an advisor that uses our platforms, through our digital channels seamlessly. And that means, our mobile properties, our web properties, our trading business, our robo-advice business, all of those things are all different channels through which our clients interact. And so our teams work to improve those every day.
So do you have folks internally that work on building the product, building IT, who kind of manages those? How does that kind of go in and around the digital officer kind of landscape?
Yeah, so our team is predominantly composed of product managers, user experience, user research folks, strategy folks. We have a big data team. The team works closely with our engineering team to actually build and develop the experiences that we deliver for our clients. So one of the things about Schwab, and this is was Chuck's vision many, many years ago, is that we actually do a lot of our development ourselves. So there are a lot of companies that outsource a lot of their development. We have over 600 agile teams here at Schwab.
Wow.
And so we have a very large development organization. And so the product managers and UX, UR, all those folks help lead those teams.
Yeah, we talk a lot on the show about who owns the customer experience, and it's so interesting, the rise of roles like chief digital officer and things like that, to figure out how is data informing what we do? How is this, experience get improved, get tweaked, get worked on? What's kind of your framework or philosophy around, customer or client experience?
Yeah, one of the things that what we found, Schwab, one of the things that's I think really nice about the company that has actually kept me at Schwab for so many years is that it's very client focused. And a lot of companies say that, but I think Chuck had a philosophy around client focus that was quite different many years ago. And what that means is that when we're doing, whether it's developing a new product or enhancing one that we already have, we do a lot of we spend a lot of time on user research, ethnographies, a lot of client journey mapping, really the diagnostics to understand the client experience. And I think we break it up into kind of the things that are around, improving the baseline experience, right? Simplicity, intuitive experiences, just trying to make it easy because investing is not easy necessarily.
Yeah.
And then there are things that we think are really value added where, our goal is to be able to serve, the mass affluent, the average investor, everyday person and help them get invested. And so how do we help provide guidance and help in a way that's understandable? And that's where I think some of those really value-added experiences, like I think of our Schwab Intelligent Portfolios experiences, are really about trying to take the everyday investor and give them that kind of help to get them invested where it might have been daunting for them to shop and try to figure that all out on their own.
Yeah. And I think with some of the cool tools that have been launched recently, like the launch of Intelligent Income and things like that, it kind of seems like the organization is really putting technology at the fingertips of your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do those things kind of get, storyboarded? How do those things get worked on? Are you trying to, Amazon's famous for the, trying to get everything to one click. Like, are there things like that you use to try to figure out how to make a seamless client experience?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some, we have guiding principles like things about ease and simplicity and, intuitive, removing the jargon. I mean, one of the things about Schwab we really focus on is try to take all that investing jargon out of there and be very simple and basic about language to make it less intimidating and help a client feel confident. But I think a lot of that gets figured out by the team in their labs or in their journey teams. So we spend a lot of time. So for example, our innovation lab teams are teams of about 12 people, and they do weekly user testing on their concepts, and they're really trying to focus on making that experience as simple and streamlined and intuitive as possible for an investor. And again, the investors that we serve range the spectrum. So some are really sophisticated and know exactly what they want, but there are a lot of folks who want help and they don't know how to get it.
Another one of the things that I thought was so cool was the idea of taking away fees. Can you talk through, like, from a digital experience, what that was like?
Yeah. Well, when we make one of those decisions, as a member of the executive committee, we had been thinking about that for quite a long time, and it's really part of our goal and has been for many years to try to democratize investing. When something like that, we decide to do it from a digital team perspective, you can imagine that it becomes a very broad scale effort to actually implement. So
of course, yeah.
When you think about all of the various trading systems, all the different web properties, mobile properties, both for our retail investors and our advisors, there are changes that have to be implemented across. And you can think about, in the world of investing, that means things that are easier, like digital, like our content, right? That's easier. But things that are also harder in terms of, for example, our back-end trading systems, our statements, the confirms, all of that has to change when you make a change like a pricing change.
Yeah, I am curious how many different systems hook into yours, because I would imagine there's just like a massive amount of digital systems. So it's like if you're making a change like that, it's not like you're making them all on your platform. It's you have all sorts of partners that are gonna be hooked into that.
That's right. And as I mentioned, we do a lot of development in-house, but we try to be very disciplined about not assuming that we should do everything ourselves. And we use a lot of great partners, a lot of vendors for various parts of the offering. So, when it comes to something like our provider that works on our statements, well, it's not just changing it on our system, but also working with that provider to make sure that those changes get through theirs. So it is definitely an ecosystem, and it's something like a zero commission change. That's an all hands on deck kind of experience, especially when you're trying to keep it quiet from the marketplace and not leak the news before we make the change.
Well, and I think it's something that is obviously going to, matriculate to every person that is a client, obviously, and everybody internal in the organization. And I'm curious, when you're looking at changes like that, and you're everybody's kind of on this digital transformation journey or digital evolution, and you're, somewhere on that as well. But I'm curious, when something like that comes and you have to make this sort of okay, this is something we have to hit in a timely manner, and you can't stop the journey, right? So how did you look at kind of implementing something of that scale that was that important?
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine not everyone's thrilled to drop what they're doing and say, oh, well, let's move to this priority. Now, when it's something this cool, when we're leading the industry to something that has been our mission, people get really excited about it. And I'm so proud of our team because when something like this comes down, people just rally and work collectively to figure it out and make sure it happens on time. But it is kind of a very, it requires a lot of program management to try to make sure that we get everything right. And, there's always something that gets missed and that you have to go back and fix. And then I think it's kind of after you do it, going back and picking up the work that you were doing before and making sure that doesn't lose momentum either. So, when it's something like a zero commission, you can't carve that out to a team. Now, there are pieces that you can kind of carve out, but it impacts a lot of folks, across a lot of systems. Luckily, not many of the things we do affect everybody. So when we think about like Schwab Intelligent Income you mentioned, something like that, we have teams that have been focused on building out that offer for quite a while. And when we go to launch it, there are lots of teams that are involved in that launch, but you're able to kind of categorize that and carve it out a little bit and not impact all of the work going on across the portfolio. But it is, we have hundreds of initiatives going on at the same time. So we have to kind of balance that.
How much do you work with helping choose and select and implement technologies internally for the employees at Schwab?
Yeah, we used to keep those internal platforms separate from our client-facing platforms, actually. Mm-hmm. So the digital team actually focused on the client-facing channels, and we had a different team that actually focused on the internal. And one of the big buzzwords out there is the omni-channel experience, right?
Yeah.
But it really is one of Schwab's key value propositions is that you shouldn't have to compromise between talking to a person who's an expert and being able to do things digitally when you want to. And we do both. We have great talented people and we have these great digital channels. And so it felt really important over time to bring those capabilities in-house and be thinking about, I think about the experience where the financial consultant in the branch can turn the screen and be able to use Schwab.com or Schwab Mobile on the client's mobile app to show them the experience or to help them learn how to use a financial plan or how to model out their income over time or whatever. And so it became really important to bring those technologies closer. And so when it comes to things like, for example, our CRM system or document management or things like that, the team gets very involved.
Yeah, there's kind of that level of employee experience, which we talk about, a lot on the show, where you have especially people like this, where if they're at the front lines working with a client, right? Mm-hmm. If they're sitting there with them and they don't understand how to leverage the technology that's at their fingertips, not only is that client not going to be super thrilled, but it also just kind of limits your client experience overall, right? And there's not a lot of standardization there. But things like AI or bots or, RPA or some of these tools that can really help the person on the ground be able to get faster results. Are you looking at, innovations like that?
Absolutely. And you're so right. I would say this has been a journey for us. We were way too siloed in the way we thought about the channels, meaning the human channel, like the branch channel, the call centers and the contact centers and the digital channels all kind of operated a little bit more independently. Yeah. But our value proposition is when you bring them all together, that's the power of it. And so thinking about, for example, one of the capabilities that we've been rolling out over the course of the last several months is an income reporting and projection capability on Schwab.com and mobile. And it's really pretty cool if you're a client who's actually trying to basically generate income off of your portfolio. You're retired or whatever, and that's what you're trying to generate your income off of. It's an ability to actually project that forward and see kind of what do I need? Do I have enough money for what I'm trying to accomplish? And the financial consultants are now using that, as a way to engage a client in a conversation about, whether it is saving a little bit more, or oftentimes clients actually have enough money, but they're so worried about it that they don't actually spend, and they're being more conservative than they need to. So there's a lot of power when they use the technology in the branch. The question about the automation, and one of the pilots we have going on right now, employee pilots, is Intelligent Assistant, which is a chatbot experience on the mobile app. And one of the key channels that we'll be using that is actually in the branch. So there's an opportunity for sometimes when people come into the branch, they have questions that are basic questions that, they don't need to walk into a branch for, but we do have clients who just are so used to it.
Totally.
And so the branches are, starting to activate clients on using the mobile app for more than just depositing their checks or whatever they might be used to.
Well, there's a really interesting case study that someone did, and I forget the exact case study, but basically, like, banks on Fridays were full, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why was because a lot of the population that was going into banks on Friday afternoons was they were just lonely and they just wanted to go hang out with their person, somebody and talk about stuff. And I always think about that of what the utility is that you're providing, especially in financial services, where part of it is to be the trusted advisor, right?
That's right. So relationship.
Yeah. So if that person wants to come in and spend their 30 minutes and just BS with you about, a stock that they think is cool, it kind of puts you in an advantageous position to serve that customer's needs.
Well, everyone needs something different. And I think the thing about money and your financial life, it's very personal. It's actually very emotional. I think people think money is about the head. It's often about the heart. And I think that our ability to connect with people is going to be paramount in the long run, because a lot of things can get digitized. You can automate a ton of things with a lot of the technologies you just mentioned, but you're not going to be able to automate, at least for quite a long time, that emotional connection with people. And I think when it comes to their financial life, sometimes they just want to be able to talk about what they're thinking, or, have the financial consultant ask them the question behind the question, right? And you can't replicate that with technology. But technology can enable that experience and make that interaction richer if you can kind of show that client, oh, let me help you use that on the mobile app. Look, you can do this yourself if you want to, but if you want to come in and talk to me, I'm here.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot to be done to augment that kind of human experience where, giving the person superpowers on the ground allows someone to build a relationship and ask those questions. I think part of the thing, and I don't know if you've seen any studies like this, but just people will, essentially be fabricate the truth when they're doing financial reporting, when they're trying, doing things like that, right? Where they might kind of stretch the truth talking to a person, whereas if they're filling out a survey, they might be a little bit more honest about it, or vice versa, or things like that. And I just think with massive amounts of data, to be able to have some level of predictive analysis of what people might be doing, what people might be saying that they are doing, and then being able to show them kind of the truth of that is hugely important to financial literacy. Yeah.
One of the things that we haven't launched this, but one of the things we've done a proof of concept on is something we call peer benchmarking, where to help an investor, traditionally people compare their portfolio to a benchmark. And that benchmark can be, the S&P 500 or some market performance benchmark. And what we've been trying to educate people is, well, think about it relative to your goal. It doesn't really matter if the S&P went up or the S&P went down, or you're just below it or just above it. What matters is, do you have enough money to meet your goals? But one of the other ways to help a client understand if they're doing well or not well is to actually help them understand how they're doing against versus a peer group. Because I think when people see that, hey, I'm doing better than a peer group or worse than a peer group, it gives them another benchmark to think about whether they want to save more, if they're being too conservative. And so we've done some work around that, and it's very interesting. Clients are very interested in understanding how they're doing against people who are similar to them, whether it's professionally, locally, and we have such a large client base that we can, really provide some richness in that data.
I want to talk a little bit about just chief digital officers in general. This is something that's pretty new still.
Yep.
I think, whether it's the role of the CIO or CTO or CDO, all these things are changing rapidly. What these things mean, what do you think the chief digital officer, can and should be doing of the future?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So when I've been at Schwab for about 15 years, and I've had 12 different jobs, and this one I've been in for about 2 years. So we didn't have a chief digital officer role. We created one when about a little over 2 years ago, and at that time I started meeting other people who were chief digital officers at other companies, and it's kind of a funny experience because no two roles are even remotely the same. I mean, they're completely different. Some people have a marketing angle to the digital. Some people have much more of a technology, and it's really more of a agile kind of development. Some people don't even have a digital business, and they're just trying to start one up, and they're trying to put up a website, and a mobile app. So they just vary so much. I think in our company, what we saw was that we had a retail business and institutional business, and we were making lots of progress because technology has always been at the heart of our value proposition. But what we saw is that we had the opportunity to bring things together and focus on going faster and maybe thinking a little bit further out into the future, and bringing some of the newer practices around product management into the company in a more scalable way. So to give you a specific example, user experience was something that we pretty much used a lot of agency for. So we had, I would say, a team of maybe 10, 12 people a couple years ago. Now we have a team of about 150.
Wow.
And so we built that team because it's so critical to the experience that we have great design. And we really understand our clients, so that user research part as well. But we were outsourcing a lot of that with lots of agencies. And what it resulted in is kind of an experience that was not consistent across channels, that was not consistent across experiences. And so I think that the goal in our company was to bring these new practices in, refine our agile development model, incorporate more design, become more outcome driven, and really, I think digital is a little bit of the misnomer. It's really a transformation role, because I think if someone asked, what is it that you are really trying to do? It's about changing the company and transforming the company and helping us be even more agile, because the future is going to require our company to be more agile. So the technology part or the digital part is just a mechanism for that. But we need marketing to be more agile. We need HR to be more agile. We need our legal and compliance and risk partners to be more agile.
Yeah, and so how do you partner with like business units and then other areas and business functions within the company?
Well, we bring them in early, and that's actually the model that we created when we started the organization was creating journey teams, initiative teams, even the labs, where our, for example, risk management partners were at the table at the very beginning. So if I think of the old way we used to develop, we do our discovery work and we'd ramp the team, and the team, we were agile even 5-7 years ago, but the team would start building and working on things, and we didn't have a great amount of design. And then we'd bring some of those partners in late in the game. And what would happen, of course, is, we're in a highly regulated environment. The team would be like, 2/3 down the road building something and be like, they'd get some feedback from our, information security partners or our compliance partners that they've built something that is not going to work. And it would take a lot of time to rework that and kind of get it to be what it needed to be. Now, when the team starts, we use, actually, you mentioned Amazon, we use the PR FAQ model. We actually do a lot of, we call it shift left, a lot of discovery work, a lot of journey mapping, those kind of diagnostic things we do at the beginning. And our risk partners, our marketing partners, HR, finance, legal, everyone's at the table when we do those things at the very beginning of the effort. And so they're able to solution and understand the context of where we're going. And I think it's improved the efficiency of the product development cycle tremendously.
What about your relationship with data? Obviously data being kind of at the center of digital.
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting story here, because data actually, when we created digital, data was not a part of the digital services organization. Earlier this year, we moved all of the data teams into digital services.
Oh, no kidding.
And so, and it was really a little bit of the journey. So when we started digital, we really wanted to focus on kind of getting our house in order. Like I said, building the UX team, really kind of, we wanted to, reset the expectations on what product management is and bring in some best practices around making sure that we were building, we had consistent talent across the board. We hired a lot of new folks, but the data piece was the piece that we were still kind of waiting to transform, I would say. So we brought it in earlier this year. And there's a few different components of the strategy that we are focused on here. One is around democratizing data. So we need our product managers, if we're going to be outcomes oriented and driving towards shared metrics, they need to have the data on their experiences. So that's just about access. The second is about data-driven experiences. So that's around personalized experiences when it comes to your portfolio, your digital experience, whatever. And then the third one in our environment is about regulatory, privacy, security, because it's such our data is so sensitive from that standpoint. But those teams are now part of digital, and they actually are part of those product teams right from the beginning that I mentioned. So they're at the table right from the beginning.
When you're going to like lobby with, the board or with the leadership team about resources and things like that, are you there's some sort of like metrics that you're using or something to say like, hey, this is like an ROI generating, part of the company? Because I know like, traditionally things like IT and, has been a cost center. And so kind of it doesn't end up showing those kind of business results, but it seems like there's so many things that you're doing that directly impact the business.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate on this front. And I think it's because of that client-focused culture that I mentioned. Mm-hmm. I know this was true 15 years ago when I joined, and I think it's still true today. If you walk into a meeting with a team and they're talking about some new concept, they'll talk about the client, they'll talk about the experience, and then after they leave the room, someone will say, oh, wait, what about the ROI? It's just not where we start. Where we start is the client problem and the client need. And I think because of that, it kind of liberates us to innovate. And so I feel fortunate because there's not a lot of lobbying that I have to go do because we're able to show such tremendous progress on things like client experience. And that can be measured by, we use Client Promoter Score, Net Promoter Score, Client Easy Score, all the industry accolades that we've been getting. We use a metric called minutes saved. And that metric is really about our client-facing teams saving minutes on the transactional manual work they have to do because now we have a better digital experience. So for example, if a client's trying to journal some money and they were trying to do it online and they were unsuccessful, they would call into a contact center. Well, that's something they were trying to do online. So we actually create a bad experience. If we can fix that experience, all of a sudden we've actually improved the Client Easy Score and we've saved minutes for our client-facing team. So we use that minutes saved metric as well. And then, of course, we use growth metrics such as net new assets, share of wallet, and other metrics like that are really about, a client showing that they're going to, step up and bring more assets to us.
Let's get into the lightning round. Lightning, fast and easy questions, just like the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. You can learn more at salesforce.com/platform. We love Salesforce. You will too. Check them out. Lightning round questions. Neesha, are you ready?
I don't know. Am I ready?
#1. What app are you using on your phone that's the most fun?
Oh, the most fun. Starbucks.
Favorite book, podcast, TV show, movie that you've read or listened to recently?
I'm a big podcast listener. So I love How I Built This.
It's so good. What about your favorite thing to cook or eat?
Guacamole and chips with margarita, of course.
That's a great answer. When you move, do you use plastic boxes or paper boxes?
Oh, we use paper.
So I just used plastic and it was like all tubs and it was like super expensive to buy all these stupid tubs, but they stack really well. And I feel like
Oh, you're converted?
It's been pretty revolutionary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just always feel bad. And then you have like these giant stacks of boxes. I'm like, I'm going to live with these. I'm going to be buried in all of my...
You're going to recycle them.
My thing. What do you do for fun?
Oh, I have 3 boys. So fun means things like wrestling. I went to University of Michigan undergrad, as did my husband, so we can brainwash our children without any guilt. So a lot of Michigan sports, a lot of sports just generally. I'm a fitness junkie, so I love a good Peloton ride or a boxing class.
What about your best piece of advice for a first-time chief digital officer?
Top-down support is critical. And transformation is really about the entire company. So building those relationships and getting your peers really bought in to where you're going, helping them see the win for them in it is really critical. And then, of course, everyone says this, but it's all about the team. So making sure that team that you build, because I think most companies have to do some development and some hiring, I think it's huge.
What technology are you most excited about experimenting with in the future?
Personally or for Schwab?
A bit of both.
I mean, I think I don't know how financial services is going to use it, but I think augmented reality, if we could help people understand what it would be like if they could achieve their goals in some more virtual way, in some way that felt more real, I think that could be, it's hard. I mean, saving money is like losing weight. You don't see the results for so long. So how can we bring it more to life for people? I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, like augmented reality, you walk in and there's like, boom, your new couch is like sitting there. You're like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, dang, I gotta put a quarter in the money jar.
Yeah. Well, in investing, it's about growth over time, and to see what can happen to your money as you invest it and grow, you got to help people dimensionalize that.
What is your favorite animal?
The elephant. Do you know why?
Because they never forget.
My last name actually means elephant
in
Hindi,
really?
And so that's why my family is very proud of this. Hathis all over the place. Yeah,
it's like a big deal,
yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah. That's sweet. I think faisant means to do or to make in French.
And really?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not positive of that, but I don't really know. We're not really French, but I guess somewhere along the line. But it's always cool, and that elephant's pretty good. Mm. So this is non-financial investment, but what investment in yourself have you made that you were super proud of in the last year?
An investment in myself. Well, I invest, like I said, I'm a fit. The way my meditation is my exercise addiction, my morning exercise habit. So I would say the investment I make in that, whether it's monetary or just the time, feels like a luxury, but it's super helpful to me.
What question do you never get asked that you wish you were asked more often?
Maybe no one ever asked me about what it's like to raise 3 boys.
What is it like to raise 3 boys?
In the city of San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's mayhem. It really is, actually. But when work is crazy and in a job like mine, there's always something. They are awesome because they just remind you of what's important. And when they're crazy, I'm lucky that I can go to work.
Yeah, touche. Well, that's it. That's all we got. Thanks for coming on, Neesha. I super appreciate it. Any final thoughts? Any things to plug?
No, I'm excited to say that there's a lot of people out there who are getting their way to a better financial future, and I'm glad we're able to play a part in that.
Awesome. Take care.
Thanks.
IT Visionaries is created by the team at mission.org and brought to you by the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Build connected experience, empower every employee, and deliver continuous innovation with the customer at the center of everything you do. Learn more at salesforce.com/platform.